Hello friends, I hope you're all well. Have you ever tried talking to someone whose mind is already made up, either because they have absolute control of the subject matter or perhaps just absolute control over you? In any case, it seems impossible that anything you can say or do will change the outcome. Now, the question that may occur to us is this: if God is sovereign and He rightly determines everything, then do our choices, what we do, affect any of His future actions? Or specifically, can prayer actually change things? In Exodus 15, after escaping slavery in Egypt, the Israelites under Moses had come to the waters of Marah and discovered it was bitter and unsuitable for drinking. This was in the desert of Shur, and there were no convenience stores nearby to get a drink. So you can understand their dire and desperate circumstances. Had God parted the sea to save them from the Egyptian army only to let them die of thirst now? Or did God forget about this little detail? An oversight perhaps. Why had God not acted in His foreknowledge to ensure drinkable water for His people? No wonder then they were very angry at Marah. Moses, in all probability, did not have the luxury of time or circumstance to grapple with theological questions of God's workings. He took the only option available to him. In verse 25, he cried out to the Lord. As a result of his desperate prayer, God showed him a piece of wood to throw into the water. Lo and behold, it healed the water, making it sweet for drinking. The point here is not about a formula for making bitter water sweet, but that God, who is sovereign and determines all things, responded to Moses' prayer. Did Moses' prayer and its result take anything away from God's sovereignty? That is, did it make God do anything outside of His will? Well, of course not. God knew the water was bitter beforehand. It was not an oversight. And He also fully intended to heal the waters. God had simply waited until Moses prayed before He healed the water. What this means is the one and only, all-knowing, almighty God had ordained both the ends and the means for His people's deliverance. By this I mean that He determined both, that the waters shall be healed and Moses shall pray for it. You see, together, Moses' prayer and the miraculous healing of water were part of God's gracious providence. In the Bible, we can see other examples of God responding to prayer. Samuel, perhaps the greatest prophet Israel had ever known, was born because Hannah, who was barren, wept and prayed her heart out for a child. And in Elijah's day, a severe famine and drought in Israel that lasted 3.5 years was finally lifted when he, Elijah, bent over and with his face between his knees prayed 7 times for rain. What would have happened if Moses and Hannah and Elijah had not prayed? Their generation might never have known God's divine providence as recorded in the Bible today. In this, we see that God ordained prayer as means for such events to come to pass. Not always, not every single time, but when He does ordain it, prayer changes the future. What's the principle here for us then? We must never presume that God will grant us, apart from prayer, what He has ordained to grant us only by the means of prayer. In other words, some things happen only because they are prayed for, and some things don't because they are not prayed for. In conclusion, friends, today, what deliverance might God have ordained to come to pass as a result of your prayer? This speaks to us at the Wednesday Praise and Prayer. A right understanding of God's sovereignty and divine providence should not lead us to pray less but more. God has given us the privilege to be included in His work. While we may never fully understand how God's divine providence interacts with human responsibility, we can always make sure that we are never found wanting in prayer. Yes, you pray, He works the impossible. Our prayer makes things happen.